Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're looking at the SVD, which I've been wanting to revisit ever since the 15% recoil buff came in to properly check out its performance, and let me tell you, it's feeling pretty strong. Before we continue, today's video is sponsored by the Ridge Wallet, my favourite solution to bulky and disorganised card holding. I swapped over to the Ridge Wallet and the key case as well, which I'll show you in a second, and I couldn't be happier with it. It holds up to 12 cards really securely inside the wallet itself, which is really nice, and it comes in a ton of cool colours as well. And the Ridge team were actually kind enough to send me one of these, which is one of the new models, which is the Basecamp orange version, and this thing, fortunately right now, is holding a perfect pristine set of labs cards. This version actually comes with a cash strap rather than a money clip, and it really just comes down to personal preference, and as always it blocks unsolicited RFID reading. One of the best things about the Ridge product is the build quality. The wallet is really light but is so much more robust than a traditional one and is literally the size of a card, so it will fit into your pocket really well. Mine looks good as new after 6 months, and there are well over 30 colours and styles, so you can pick the perfect look for you. Same goes for the key case. This holds 2 to 6 keys and my car key goes on a little ring at the back. After reviewing my massive wad of keys, I only needed 2 of them, and I still feel a bit silly lugging around 13 keys and 4 random barcode tags for years. No more jingling around in pockets or searching for the right key anymore. The Ridge team are so confident that you'll be converted that they have a 99-day test drive period, after which you can get your money back if you don't love it and a lifetime warranty if you do. What's more, you can get the best offer right now at ridge.com/gigaridge to save 10% on your order. So that's ridge.com/gigaridge to join the 50,000 strong 5-star rated proud owners of the Ridge wallet. So back to the SVD. This is the only gun in Tarkov that fires 7.62x54R on semi-auto, at least until some of the new weapons come in, which by itself is extremely powerful. The accessibility and performance of these cartridges is amazing, which is getting more important as we progress through various patches of ammo limitations, trader restrictions, and flea market bans. Since the 15% recoil reduction across the board, some weapons have improved more than others, and personally I feel that the SVD benefits from this more than other weapons of the same type, because it's one of those guns that struggles between recoil and ergo. You can't have both, and even when modding it totally for recoil, it still doesn't get that low. This means that the recoil after the 15% change makes the SVD decently more usable than before, as you don't need to run one of the absolute lowest recoil builds for it to feel more usable over medium distances. So let's dive into the builds first, starting with the lowest recoil possible. So we're going to start with a base SVD from Prepor 3, which costs 94,000 rubles. You can buy one from the flea market and sometimes find them cheaper at 100% durability, but a lot of these are lower dura. It's not actually that bad because on semi-auto you're not firing too many bullets, but I really would buy one with 100% unless you really are going for some very cheap version of a build, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So let's take any of these and just edit the preset and get started. Now the interesting thing about the SVD is that there are 2 kind of ways to go. One uses this lower band, upper band section, and the other one uses this SAG Mark 1. So what we're going to do to start with, to make the lowest recoil build, we're going to keep it in its original default format, which is using the SVDS upper band, because this actually allows you to access the lowest recoil. So first and foremost, let's start by just removing the front sight because we don't need this. There is only one muzzle brake for the SVD, and this is one limitation of the weapon, I suppose, because to get the minimum recoil version, you need to add the thread adapter, and then onto this you have to add the suppressor, the Rotor 43 7.62x54R muzzle brake compensator. This gives you minus 10% recoil, and it's the only suppressor that you can actually attach or compensate or anything like that. So that's really important to use if you want to get to the minimum recoil, although it does make the weapon a bit cumbersome. Next, we're going to change over the handguards. We're going to change this to the SVD modernization kit handguard, which is the best one that you can do for this particular build. And onto this, we're going to add an M-LOK 4.1-inch rail and then an RK2 foregrip, which is, as usual, the lowest recoil with minus 4%. After this, we're going to look at the stock. So we change over the basic SVD stock to the SVDS adapter. This is the buffer tube version. Stick this on, and then the minimum recoil one, which is one that I don't normally use very much practically speaking, but it is technically the MT crosshair because this has minus 5% recoil, so let's attach this. And then onto that, from the stocks, the usual lowest recoil version is this PRS Gen 3, which we're going to put onto here. Now this gets us to 75, but there's actually one more part that we can attach here, which is this one. And this is kind of sneaky because it doesn't look like a part, but it in fact is, and gives you another 2% lower recoil. This is the SVD modernization kit top rail, and when you put that on, this gets us to 69 vertical recoil, which is the lowest that you can make without doing anything silly with the night scope. The night scope is possible to use on the SVD with the minus 5%, but you're not allowed to have the rail, and it doesn't really make sense as a build. So this is the practical lowest recoil build that you can get here. Now you may notice that we have 0 ergo, which is not really very good. I would always recommend running the 20 rounders, and in terms of getting a bit more on this, the SVDS grip, the basic one, we can change over to this thing, which is the custom arms, which is the highest ergonomics that you can get. which takes us up to a grand total of 2. And that's basically it. There is no custom charging handle that you can put on this one, and so the ergonomics just really suffers. I don't like running it with such low ergonomics, so what I usually do is swap over the RK2 over to something like the SE5. You could instead swap over to something like the RK1 canted, but I like the SE5 because it gives you so much more ergo. This brings it up to 18. Then instead of using the MT crosshair, I like using the ARE, the advanced tube. This is a mechanic 4 piece, and this has -4% recoil, so it's 1 less, but it gives you a bit more ergonomics than the MT crosshair, because the MT crosshair is -3 and the ARE is +2, so it's a swing of 5. So I use that, and then instead of the PRS Gen 3, I tend to use any of the MOE carbines, doesn't matter what color, use that and stick on the rubber butt pad. And then that gets us to 81 recoil and 30 ergonomics. And this is actually my preferred build. If you don't mind giving up some recoil for a little bit more ergonomics, you can go the other way around. So if you get rid of the modernized handguard, you also have to get rid of this dust cover because the two things are incompatible and just simply don't work. So the upper band section, if you replace this with the SAG Mark 1 piece instead, the Mark 1 chassis, put that on. This now allows us to put on a different cover, which is this one, the custom cut version, which will fit with this particular chassis because it's a lot shorter, you see. So onto this again, we could put on the RK2. Let's go stick that on, and we'll put this back to the MT crosshair just to compare the two builds and see where it gets to. And we're going to add on the PRS Gen 3. So this gets us to 8 ergonomics and 78 recoil, which is a little bit better, as you can see, on the ergo, but a little bit worse on the recoil. Modifying this in exactly the same ways we did before with the SE5, swap this back over to the ARE and put on the MOE butt pad and stock instead. This gets us to 36 ergonomics and 90 recoil. So here we're sacrificing 9 recoil in order to gain 6 ergonomics. I don't like this build as much. I don't think it's worth it for the sacrifice on the recoil, but it might be if you want a little bit faster ADS speed. You might notice that this build is very slightly lighter than the other one, but pretty much all of these guns come to well over 6 kilograms, especially once you've loaded ammo into the mag. That's going to add even more weight than what you see here. What I did find specifically interesting about the builds now is that the 69 vertical theoretical lowest recoil build would have in fact been 81 previously, which is the recoil of our optimized version now. So you can basically get the old lowest recoil SVD, but with some ergo attachments instead with the new update. You might also have noticed that I use the 20 rounders as a standard on both of these weapons. Once you have Prapor 4, they really are worth it because the ergo hit is only 1 more than the regular magazines. I tend to use 2 of them because generally it's enough, 1 in the gun and 1 in the rig. If you're not quite there yet in terms of trader levels, you can clearly use the 10 rounders as well. We just have to be a bit more careful about unloading a bunch of shots really fast in the closer range fights. Optics wise, you can use whatever your preference is. I have been using a combination of the TAC 30 and the Schmidt & Bender 1x8 as cheaper alternatives to the typical Voodoo and the Razor, which are normally seen as the top tier scopes. The TAC 30 has issues with recoil, especially on full auto where the sight picture gets obstructed, but on semi it's not actually that big of a deal. The Schmidt is an excellent scope now that the sensitivity issues on the 1x have been fixed, but sometimes the 8x is a little bit too much depending on what map you're playing on. There is another route for the SVD that I didn't go down this wipe, which is the hyper ergo version for faster ADS speed and a red dot or a laser. I have an older video about this, which is, to be honest, still practically the same now because the vertical recoil is so high on this build anyway that no buff is going to save it. Next up, let's look at the ammo. Lots of people go ahead and craft SNB when they're looking to use the SVD, which is fair enough because it's one of the best bullets in the whole game. But if you have Prapor 4 and the Workbench 3, I usually argue that this is a mistake, simply because you can be doing better things in the Workbench. Typically crafting 7.62BP or M61, which don't have equivalents in their calibers, is more important to focus on rather than making rounds for the SVD. 54R has BT, which, because these can be bought directly from Prapor 4, frees up your Workbench for these other more important cartridges, and BT is arguably good enough in 99% of fights. With 78 damage and 55 pen, this can deal with everything up to and including Class 5 armor very easily. Even at 100% durability, a Class 5 gets penned 94% of the time by 54R BT. Class 6 is the only place that this gets a little tricky, but even then it's still a 37% chance on shot 1 to go through. BT does such a ridiculous amount of armor damage that even against a Zabralo it almost always kills in 3 shots regardless, and sometimes still in 2. So the only advantage you're getting with SNB is a guaranteed 2-shot thorax kill against things like the Zabralo and the Slick, rather than a 1/3, 2/3 chance for 2 and 3 shot kills, which in the grand scheme of Tarkov fights is pretty niche. One cool thing though is that BT has a lot less recoil than SNB. While the 4 recoil bonus listed against the ammo doesn't seem like that big of a deal on its own, the swing from BT to SNB, and incidentally PS as well to some extent, is actually 14 because of the SNB's 10 recoil disadvantage. You can see how BT looks better when you shoot. It's not that much different, but anything to help with the SVD can compound on the updated recoil to make it really quite good. If you don't have access to BT, then crafting SNB is fine. Otherwise, just basically use the best that you can, either PS or LPS if you're quite low level. So finally, we'll check out a few raids to see how I got on. In these I'm completing both Punisher 6 originally because you don't need it for Lightkeeper, so I ignored it until now, and Long Line at the same time on Interchange. I'm half tempted to go at the back. Whoa. What was that like weird flashlight? You have over there or something? Oh, there he is. Flank. They got pincered by me and the other guy. Don't really have the gun to engage in CQB. The guy's got something full auto. Oh no. Was that the dude? Or was that someone else? He player? We don't know. He tried to leave. There's another flash though. You can leave out the front. I know. He's shooting at somebody over there. Am I just getting one shot here? Unless the only other thing is to go back around the other side. To go all the way back around the other side and try to shoot him from along the rest of the hall, you know? Because I can't... Against an MP7, it's pretty tough. Extremely tricky fight, this. Like, he might be gone. I'm not sure if I saw or heard. I think I heard something, but I don't know whether it was him. It's like hard for me to come over here, though. I guess I could. One of those is open, though. Yes! Ah! Even if we die now, I feel victorious. I don't even care. This one's a scav. Try and loot him first, I suppose. We're not going to take the Karund. The Jelm, they actually sell for quite a decent amount. Yeah, quite nice to aggregate the loot. And this guy, what's he got? Oh, he's freaking juiced. And seeing into there is kind of hard. I was going to pre-paint here. Right. I'm kind of surprised I killed him, actually. Now, what were those shots? Walking through Raz, a mistake. Could be. Get up on this cheeky spot for a sec. Okay, cool. That's good. Okay, well, that's Scav. He wanted me. He wanted me. BSG of... God. Can you not... Sounds like an MCX. Oh my god. I think that is an MCX. I probably should have just used the laser, if I'm honest. Sometimes you're just going to die. Okay, let's go. Let's go. That was not the best play I've ever done, but it'll do. Did you hear that click? Need to heal the thorax. He's got an XMC. We might just be able to leave, you know. Oh, he's got a big gun! Holy moly! I think it's an XMC. It's either that or an M700 unsuppressed. GTSK rig to the rescue. Oh, underground or over there? Over there. We've got to move. Got to move, got to move, got to move. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Learning maps are the ultimate test of patience. Yeah, I need to play more streets as well. I need to play around check 15. That's one of the other things. I just never have enough time. Genuinely, I don't play enough on stream. I would love to do a bit more, actually. I need to think about how to industrialify my process. Oh! Well, you know what that calls for. Yeah, we might die. Sure, there might be another one, whatever. Oh, there he is. He was stash running? Yeah, he looked he had a sniper. He does a suppressed gun of some kind. He's got an RPK. Interesting. So next up, go and check out my video on Class 6 armor, which is your best bet at protecting against the SVD. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons. Hit all the buttons if you enjoyed the video, and as always, have fun in your raids.